I'm so excited to finally bring you this tutorial. I've been looking forward to it since, well, September. Hi sewing friends, I'm Stephanie and this is Ashtown Creation. Back in September, I had the privilege of attending an incredible 2-day workshop at Dancing Stitches in Cambridge, Ontario. For those in the area, Dancing Stitches is in the Hespeler area of Cambridge on Sheldon Drive, just off of Highway 24. They are authorized Bernina dealers. They carry fabrics and bag making supplies. They also have in-house sewing classes and an on-site machine repair. I will put a link to their website in the description box below. The workshop was taught by Tara, the amazing designer behind Uh-Oh Creations. Learning directly from her was such an inspiring experience, and I really wanted to share things that I learned from that workshop with you. I want to say thank you to those who asked for this tutorial. I appreciate your patience. Today we are diving into the fabulous Rio Convertible Tote. It's versatile, stylish, and can be carried in several different ways. Right here I have a combination of the handbag version, but I've also added the shoulder straps for the backpack version. So this is the bag that I made at the workshop, the 2-day workshop. It is my everyday bag, and I generally carry it in the tote configuration. It does have little hooks, like a swivel hook on one side and a D-ring on the other, and that's what I've used to kind of pull it together here. It has a pocket on the front. I've got some stuff in it, but it's got a zipper pocket inside. You probably could add a slip pocket, but just remember, if you want to carry it in the handbag version, which is sort of how I have that one set up, and you clip these together, you may not want to have a slip pocket in there. With this bag, this is the one we are making in the video. I have it kind of put together, clipped together, like this is the handbag configuration. You can have it like I had my other one. Unclip these and carry it as a tote. I have added an extra 2 snaps in here because I find mine opens a little wide on the side and people can just stick their hand in it. So on the back, we have the the backpack configuration. So it hooks on to one of the D-rings at the bottom, up through the O-ring here, and then down to the other side. And when you're carrying it as a backpack though, the suggestion is to take these, the D-ring and the swivel hook, and clip it together here. So that just keeps it from popping open. So that would be the backpack configuration. And we have the tote configuration. As you probably saw with my bag, you can do the handle. So use this as a crossbody strap. So there's lots of functionality with this, and it is so cute. I have done this with, so the light blue is a faux suede from Zipper Valley. The gnome print is a cotton canvas from my fabric dresser. And the dark blue is a faux suede from Galaxy Customs. My hardware was a kit from Emmeline Bags, although since I did the strap, large, like the thicker strap, I put a wide mouth strap adjuster on it. So in this tutorial, I'll walk you through all of the steps to get this finished product. As I said, this is the bag that we are making in this tutorial. So we'll go through all. I did have a couple spots where I made some mistakes, but I either showed you how to correct it or explained how to correct it. And that's just me either not paying attention or trying to do something a little different. The one thing I will say right now, if you are doing the thick straps, give it lots of room, and the wide mouth adjusters, give it a lot of room, your strap a lot of room when you fold it around the center bar of the slider. So any materials or hardware I've used, I will try and link in the description box below. This print was a pre-order through my fabric dresser. I don't know if they have any more. I don't know if it will come back around. So I really hope that if you want it, there is a chance of getting it in the future. Oh, I also forgot to mention my little zipper pulls, zipper and zipper pulls from Zipper Valley. So I got little gnome zipper pulls inside as well. And I used a waterproof canvas inside. I believe I got it from Pacana in Calgary. But any of the other stuff that I can find, I will put a link to in the description box below. I will also link to the pattern and put a link to that in the first pinned comment in the comment section. I want to say thank you to Tara from O Creations for not only coming to Ontario and teaching her fabulous workshop, but also for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like or subscribe. I'm hoping to put out more content more consistently, so then it will let you know when I've actually put content out. If you would like to see how this fabulous bag is made, stay with me. All right, let's go through the pieces for the Rio Convertible Tote. Over here, I have my back center. I have decided to make it out of a faux suede that I got from Galaxy Customs. So I have the one center back. I have not interfaced it. Now, I will be, once I've put the panel, front and back panel together, I am going to put some fleece on it. I don't have fusible fleece, but you could use fusible fleece. I'm going to add some spray adhesive and then add it to the full panel. So I'm not cutting each fusible fleece individual for the pattern, or for each piece. So I've got my center back. I have my sides. I've got two and they are mirrored. So I've got two lefts and two rights. I have my center top over here. Center bottom is down here. These are all in, like the dark blue is all a faux suede from Galaxy Customs. The light blue is a faux suede from Zipper Valley. They do feel a little different. The Galaxy Customs feels a little thinner and the backing is different on them. So now I have my front centers. I've decided to do it out of this cotton canvas from my fabric dresser in this very cute little gnome print. Now the center fronts, you need to make sure that you've cut them mirrored. So this is my exterior front center. So I've got the one side is just straight. So on the left side of this piece, it's just straight. On the right side of this piece, looking at it, the right side of this piece has a straight and then angle and then straight down. So we want the opposite for the lining piece. So this side, it's the right or the left that has straight down, angled, straight down, and then a fully straight angled edge on that. So you put them together like this, and they mirror each other. I have two pieces of woven interfacing I have not added yet. I am going to attempt to record that at my iron. Hopefully it works. Hopefully I've got good enough lighting there that it'll work. So that is the front center. So two pieces mirrored interfacing. I've got the center lining, which is a slight bit bigger than this front center because we're going to be adding a zipper into this side. So I've got one of that out of this cotton canvas, and again I've got interfacing. Cut it. The pattern pieces tell you how to cut your interfacing. Make sure you follow those instructions, especially for the mirrored versions of these, the front center pieces, the mirrored versions, because you want to make sure that you've got the interfacing, the right angles on the right sides for the interfacing. This one is the same on both. It's got the straight, angled, and then straight. So I have woven interfacing to go with that. I have, here is the ring. It's called a ring anchor. So this will go on the back of the bag and hold our ring, which is where our strap will go through. I also use it to clip keys on my personal one. Up here we've got two strap connectors. So there's two. There's one set that will go down at the bottom of here, and this is what you would use if you are using the backpack. You want it the convertible, you want the backpack version, you will need to have one of these for these connectors and then another one for the inside at the top. So when the bag is completed, you've got the front and the back, like this. You'll have one on either side with a D-ring on one side and a swivel hook on the other that will clip together to hold it in. Probably have gone over all of this in the intro, but just in case I missed it in the intro, we need 2 of these. One is for the top clip to keep it together. The other are for the bottom strap connectors. So now we have this is the strap. This is the long strap that'll be used for either a crossbody or the backpack strap. So I have 2 pieces cut. We will be lying them lying them across each other at one end. We'll sew on a 45-degree angle and then cut it back to make a full length strap. So I've already got it marked. I will be putting double-sided tape on it a little bit later. Here I have 2 handles, so I've already marked the centers on those. These are little grab handles at the top. For the lining, I have used a waterproof canvas, navy blue waterproof canvas. OtterTex weight, I don't believe it is OtterTex, I think it's from Picana. And then there's a zipper pocket included in the pattern. I was thinking of putting in a slip pocket on the other side, but I have decided against that. I don't have quite enough fabric for that. So for the zipper pocket, I have a zipper pocket facing that will go down. First, we will mark the lines. Well, you'll need to go through and mark your lines. I'll do it off camera because I'm not showing any of the measurements. So you'll mark your lines on the back of that, put it on, we'll stitch around and pull it through. Here I have 2 pieces of zipper. There's one is longer than the other. So one is for the exterior pocket. The longer one is for the exterior pocket. And the shorter one is for the lining. To go with the gnome theme, I have 2 zipper pulls that are gnome. It's all antique brass. I've gone with the 2 gnome zipper pulls. For the hardware, I have purchased the antique brass hardware kit, Rio Convertible hardware kit from Emmeline Bags. Now the little sliders in here, if I can get it not reflecting, the little sliders in here are small. So if you're using regular quilting cotton fabric, something not as thick as a vinyl or a faux suede, then you can use those. Mine is the thicker, so I will be using these wide mouth sliders for my hardware on this. So the other thing, and I probably mentioned this in the introduction, my bag only had the center snap, and I find it could benefit from 2 more snaps. So I have included in this kit is one 18mm snap. I have 2 more here just to add onto the sides to close it. They won't be used when you pull it together like the little handbag version or pull it for the backpack version, but if you're just carrying it as a tote, while I like being able to slip things in the side, it would be good to be able to close those. So at this point, my thought is adding 2 more snaps, one on either side. And the last thing I have that I can see is my Ashtown Creations cork label. So that is all of the pieces. I realized as I was packing up that I had forgotten to mention a couple things. So I mentioned that I have the Rio Convertible Tote hardware kit, but I didn't mention exactly what was in the kit. So for this pattern, you will need 2 1-inch strap sliders, only if you are doing the back adjustable strap or the crossbody strap. If you're doing you don't want to use it as a backpack, you're only going to want to use it as an adjustable strap, you don't need the 2 sliders. You'll only need, like you would a regular crossbody strap, 1 slider and 2 swivel hooks. That's what you will need. So this kit is for doing everything included in the pattern. So I'm going to just describe everything as based on the pattern and using all of the pieces. There are variations, and if you're going to eliminate the backpack, there are simplification instructions in the pattern on how to do this. I'm going to go through everything because I'm making everything. So for what I'm making, I need 2 1-inch sliders, slide adjusters. As I mentioned, I'm using the wide mouth for those. But if you're using fabric, you just need 2 regular 1-inch slide adjusters. For the top, there is the two little straps on the side. One has a D-ring and one has swivel hook. They are both 1/2 inch. So there's a 1/2 inch swivel hook, 1/2 inch D-ring for that. There's actually 3 1/2 inch D-rings total, because you'll have 2 1/2 inch D-rings on the bottom of the bag where the other strap connectors go. You'll need an O-ring, and it's a 1 to 1.5 inch D-ring or O-ring. If you're going to use the wide mouth adjusters, you're going to need something almost as big, like a 1.5 inch, at least 1.5 inch. You can't get away with a 1 inch. You'd have to have a smaller hardware for that. The hardware won't go through anything smaller than the 1.5 inch. Well, you can try, but it's probably not going to work. So the other thing I have is the 1-inch swivel hooks for that. And as I mentioned, I have now 3. You only need 1 if you're following the pattern exactly, but I've got 3 18mm. I've got the slim magnetic snaps. So yeah, I think that's everything for the hardware. The other thing I wanted to mention, I've already interfaced my ring anchor. So yeah, it's already been interfaced, and the 2 little strap connectors have been interfaced as well. So the only interfacing I'm going to be showing next will be the main cotton canvas pieces for the front panels. So there's the 2 front centers, and then the center lining will get that interfacing. The zipper facing does not get interfaced. We don't need to have this interfacing. An alternative to using fabric for this piece is you could use fusible woven interfacing if you wanted, as long as you put it on the right way, and so when you flip it through, the glue is towards the back of the panel, and then you could iron it on. I'm using waterproof canvas, so stuff does not stick to waterproof canvas, the backside of the rubbery backside of waterproof canvas very well, so I'm not going to be doing that. Maybe on another bag, if I think of it when I'm cutting it out, I can show you how to do that. But for this one, I'm just going to be using this piece of cotton canvas uninterfaced. So now I think I've covered everything. I'm going to take you over to the iron and show you how I go about fusing. There are several different ways of fusing, but this method that I'm going to be showing you is what Tara taught us in our workshop. So I'm going to go over to the iron and show you that next. All right, I apologize. I thought I had pressed start record. I got this far and realized I hadn't been recording. So I started off with my center front pieces. This one being my center front pocket. It's got the long straight edge on my left, and the lining piece has a long straight edge on the right. So when you put it like this, the long straight edges match. So I took my pieces of woven interfacing and matched them up. So I made sure that I had the long straight edges, glue side down, long straight edges, the notched edges, for lack of a better term there. When you are applying interfacing, follow your manufacturer's instructions. What I'm going to show you, again with the other piece, is the instructions, what Tara told us about the instruction, like about how to apply interfacing, so that you're not wasting. When I cut out my cotton canvas, I iron it with, obviously heat, some steam, maybe some water. I iron it first. So if any shrinkage is going to happen to this piece, it will have happened when I prepare it before I cut it. The woven interfacing is a little different. We don't generally pre-shrink it. I have tried washing it first, but then all the glue bits go away and it doesn't adhere. So what Tara showed us was to cut out the interfacing piece, and I'll move over to this one. So this is my center lining, I guess. So after we sew the front with the zipper here, we'll put this on top, and then that should match this edge, and this would be the inside pocket. So set those aside for a minute. So working with this piece, so I've got it right side down. It's already most likely shrunk to what it's going to. I was cutting things out and block fusing. So I would cut a larger piece of both of them out, both fabrics out. I would fuse them together, put my pattern piece down, and then cut around. In some instances, I still do that. This way, I'm not wasting as much interfacing and fabric as I was. So put this on the back here and see that it's, try and get it as lined up as possible. Take my water, I just have it in a cheap dollar store water bottle, and then I spritz it. By spritzing it, sometimes it will cause it to shrink up. It's already starting to shrink up here. Sometimes it curls, like it's starting to curl there. And I don't get it overly soaking, but I just try and wet it enough so that it starts to shrink up what it's going to shrink. And if I can bring this up, I don't know if I can get this in the... So over here, you can see I had it cut exactly the same size, but it's shrunk in about 1/8 of an inch. And there's 1/8 of an inch on the other side, a little bit at the top, a little bit at the bottom. So it does, and this one has shrunk up quite a bit actually. Give it a little bit more mist to make sure that I've got it all. I think it's pretty much done. So I'm going to take my iron. Now, my iron is an industrial one. I went through a number of irons. Now, I do like steam. I like to put water in my iron, and that's probably what was causing the problem. This one is it's called hot steam. It has a big, huge container of water up the side. You can see the hose here. So I just fill it full of water and I get steam when I press it. It's also got one of these nice little shoes on it that keeps it pretty clean. And it's got, on the bottom, it's got the dial where I can select the heat settings. You kind of have to guess because I bought it from, I think, Cleaner Supply, but Wawak or Cleaner Supply, I think they're the same company. You can probably get one of these. And it came with this silicone, I want to say shoe, but it's not. It's not like a plate to put it down on. So I can rest it down like that, and it's safe. It's not going to burn anything around it. It is not light, so it does take a little bit, but I really, really like it, and I'm glad I have it. So I think it's probably shrunk enough. So I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to set my iron down. I usually count to about 8, pick it up, and then move it on to the next spot. I haven't been counting on that one, but I will on the future. So as I said earlier, follow the manufacturer's instructions for interfacing because they're the ones that are producing it. They know how it should be applied properly. This is a good technique. I don't remember who made this interfacing. It wasn't a Pellon Shape Flex. It was something I bought. I think I was trying different things. This might have been actually the Wawak stuff, but I bought from several suppliers trying to figure out which one I like because Shape Flex was getting to be too expensive. At only 20 inches wide, this is about 45 inches wide or more maybe. I don't remember, so I can't even look up the instructions, so I thought I would give it a try on this, and sure enough, it does. I don't know if you can see it, but it does shrink it up. Now, I'm not concerned about how much it's shrunk up because we've got seam allowances. And in those seam allowances, we will, be able to fix things in those seam allowances. So, it's fine that it's a little bit smaller around the edges. The main piece has not changed sizes, which is what the whole purpose of this was. So I'm just fusing from the other side, or I'm just ironing from the other side. I do tend to iron from both sides. And then to check, you can see this still hasn't fused properly. So I'm going to continue with all of my pieces because they're probably all the same. If I get an interfacing that doesn't seem to want to fuse with my iron, I do have a heat press. It just feels like a lot to turn it on for just 3 pieces. So I usually try and get it adhered by iron, but some interfacing doesn't fuse as well as others. So if you have a heat press, you know what you're doing, go ahead and use your heat press. I tend to, you know, 5 to 8 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. I don't want to hold it on for any longer than that, and do it, and then ironing from both sides because the glue is right in the middle. So by going from the back and the front, you're attacking the glue from either direction. So I'm going to finish this and then we will move on to the next step. Now that we've got our interfacing fused, the next step would be to, if you are doing the fusible fleece for each separate piece, then you would, it's saying to fuse them now. So let's say the back center, say I was putting fusible fleece just on this piece, I would make sure I left a gap at the top and put the piece, like according to the pattern, has a line where you fold it away when you cut out your fusible fleece because you want to leave a gap at the top. So if I were doing the individual pieces with fusible fleece, I would be putting it on now. But because I've decided I'm just going to put it across all of them, all of the pieces once they're all together, basically when they look like this, only the exterior pieces. This is waterproof canvas. I don't think fusible fleece would fuse to this. I'm not even sure it would glue to this. So I am going to put it on the exterior pieces. I'm not using heat, so I don't have to worry about melting anything. In the instructions, it does say if you are using heavier fabric like a cork or faux leather, you can add them to your lining, but I don't think it's going to fit, or I don't think it's going to adhere to this. Now, in the bag I made, so the red and blue one that you probably saw in the intro, I only put it in the center front. And I do find that it could have a little bit more shape, and this is actually thinner than the cork I used, so I think this will actually need the fleece. I will be doing it after I've got the exteriors put together before I sew them together. After you've applied your fusible fleece, if you're going to, is we need to mark our centers on my center back and my center front. And then I'm also going to mark centers on top and bottom of my lining as well. So, you know, finding centers isn't that difficult. You fold it. I will be snipping it so I have a V, and you can see the little V up there. You can just do a straight snip into it. I find when I'm on camera, this is the easiest way to see it because, you know, a little snip, I end up having to get it in real close and then my head gets in the shot, so whatever. I'm going to actually do the bottom too. So yeah, just a little snip in there. Do the same. I'm just going to do it on the top of this piece because we will be joining this to other pieces. So there's the top of the top, and then the centers on the lining panels. I'll definitely need this for the one with the zipper pocket, but it also helps just to keep things all lined up. So I'm matching up the sides. I'm matching up my corner, or my dart, and snip. And the last piece I'm going to do that to right now is the second lining. So now that everything that needed to be pre-marked according to the instructions has been marked, I'm going to set this aside. So in this section, we are going to be working with our strap. So our two pieces that I've already marked the center line. I was about to put this on and I thought, no, I'll wait until I get them stitched and then do the stitching, make it one long piece, then I'll put the tape on later. So we'll also be working with our handles. I've already drawn the line down the center and I've applied some. This is the very sticky leather tape from Wawa. So I put a little bit down the center. I'm going to hopefully not get it in my stitch line. Actually, I'm going to have to change that. So as it is, we fold it in and in, and then we'll be folding it again. So it will be in my stitch line the way I've got it. So I need to take these off, try and take it off. No, I'm going to have to do this. See if I can get this off. So put this on, and I'm going to put one on either side. Like I would do on my crossbody straps, I'm going to put it out here. So it'll hold it and stick it, but it's not going to be in my seam line. So put another one on. Do the same for this one. My machine does not like this tape, so I have to try and keep it out of my stitch lines. I've got those. I've got, this is the strap support. So at the back where we have our, we're going to have our O-ring connected. This is going to support this, the O-ring connector. So this will support it. I've got it marked. I don't believe we fold it back on itself again, so I've just got it in the center. We'll fold it in on itself, like into the center. So that one should be good. So strap, handles, strap support. We will have the ring anchor. So I took this piece. I did mark down the middle, but then I realized I was going the wrong way if I wanted to have things, the pattern print going up and down. Folded it in half like this, pressed, opened it up, folded each side, long side into the center like this. And then I did the same for my little strap connectors. Now one of them we will stitch and the other one we won't. So we'll top stitch because one of them, like the bottom, I believe it is, the bottom ones get stitched, like almost like top stitched when you're applying them to the bag. For the strap support, I'm going to take the tape off and I'm going to fold the long edge into the center line. I am not leaving a gap because we're not going to be folding it back on itself. So this is kind of stretchy, this fabric, so it might have been a good idea to put interfacing in it, but interfacing or stabilizer just up the center. So yeah, you'll have to judge. Hopefully it's not too stretchy, but it is kind of quite stretchy. So there we go. That's the strap support piece. These I am folding close to the center, but I am going to leave a gap, and I'll show you the gap when I get both sides folded in. So take the backing off of the other side, other piece of tape, and fold it in close to the center, but not right on. We need to leave a little gap because when we go to close these up, we need space in there for it to get around the edges. And since my fabric is so stretchy, I have to be careful how much I do of that because I can really stretch it out. And I also can stretch it out by pushing too hard on this. I'm not going to push really hard, but there we go. So now I'm going to grab some clips and I'm going to fold this in half again, and I'm going to clip it along the long edge on the open side so I can clip it together, or so I can keep it together. There's one. Do the same for the other one. All right, there we go. These are ready to sew. Now that we've got our handles all folded and clipped, we're going to start sewing them. So I like to sew my handles closed first. So I'm going to be sewing on the open side to close it and then come back around and across. So I'm going to do both handles. I'm going to put it on a 5-stitch length because that's my nice decorative stitch. And I do back stitch. The handles are going to be in the seam. These part of the handles are going to be in the seam. So I do back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam line. And I'm sewing at about 1/8 of an inch. That's pretty standard for top stitching. So when you go to pivot, you put your needle down in and then pivot. And I'm getting fairly close to the end, but I'm giving myself some space so that if I needed to trim things up, I could. Don't think I need to because, as I said, this will be in the seam. And there we go. There's one. I'm going to do the same with the other one. All right, just clean up the threads. Make sure they're not really long anyways. You don't want them sticking out after these are in the seam. Now we've got the strap connectors, the ring anchor, and the strap support. We are to take it away. We're not going to stitch this yet because we'll stitch this actually onto the panel. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to take one of these and set them aside. All right, so what we're left with is the ring anchor and one of the strap connectors. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to top stitch along either side of these. I've got it on my 5-stitch length, and I can back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. So these are all stitched. I'm now going to bring back one of the connector pieces. I can set this aside for now. And I'm going to fold this in half and just cut. Do the same for the other one. Just be careful when you're going through that you don't accidentally grab this and cut it incorrectly. So these are done for now. So I've got the 2 pieces of strap. I'm going to take the ends, one of each, and I'm going to overlap them. And I'm going to overlap them. It doesn't say this in the pattern, but I'm just going to overlap them with a little bit extra on either side so that we get a nice even when we turn it out. We get it nice and even along the straight edge. So I've got my straps this way. I've got them overlapping. I'm going to move this away from the corner. I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm going to draw a line. You don't have to draw a line if you don't want to, but I am going to draw a line from this corner here to this corner down here. So normally I would use a ruler, but I'm on camera, so I'm just going to use any old straight edge. So there we go. So this is going to be the line that I stitch on. I'm just going to change it to a 3.5 stitch length, and I am going to stitch from that corner to that corner following the line and back stitch. Right, and there we go. We have it sewn on. So I've gone ahead and marked a line, the seam allowance distance that it says in the pattern away from the stitch line. That's where I'm going to cut. So basically it's giving us the seam allowance. So I'm just going to cut along this line and then I'm going to open it up. So butterfly the seams. If you have fabric and you can press this open, go ahead and press it open. I can't, but if you can sew through the tape, you might want to put tape on either side to keep it open. I'm just going to go along and trim off these ears. I'll do one side at a time. I'm also going to go along and I'm going to put double stick tape or double-sided tape, like I did, I believe, on the handles, just a little bit away from the center, because we are going to be folding this in and then folding it on itself again. So I want to make sure that I don't have any double stick tape for myself here or here. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to put tape down either side of this center line. And if you have fabric that you can iron, go ahead and iron it in half like that. Open it up again, iron one part in and then the other part. So you end up with a strap like this. Being that I'm using a non-fraying fabric, I'm just going to run a lighter over the end here. You can also use strap ends. Just clean up any fraying stuff. If you have fabric that you frays, you're going to want to fold up one end while you do this. Now when I get to this center seam here, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to run the double stick tape over it. This should help it a bit, stay open a bit. Now that we've got the tape on, however you want to put it, the tape, if you want to do it right down the center or on either side like I've done, we're going to just gradually take the paper off the back of the tape and fold each side, long side, to the center. But I'm not taking it all off at once. I also will be starting partway down, folding it towards the center line, but not to the center line, and gently folding it over. I'm not pulling on it. I don't want to twist my strap. Make sure that you've got it sitting open. And when you fold it over, you don't want to fold this down. You want to fold it straight down towards the line. You don't want it try and line it up with the seam, because the seam is meant to be offset like this. You want it close to the, just like the rest of it, you want it close to that center line, but not over. Again, I probably should have, because of how stretchy this fabric is, I probably should have interfaced my strap, but I didn't, so I'm working with it. If you need to, grab clips along the way. If you don't want to use double-sided tape at all, there's glue, there's just clips. I've seen people use bobby pins. Just coming back down here to make sure that it doesn't pop open before I go any further on. This is just not staying flat, and the whole point of doing this seam is to spread the bulk out. So I'm just going to grab some, hopefully I can stitch through this. I'm going to grab some double-sided tape and put it down either side of this so I can try and lie it down flat, because you want this to be flat. Now that it's all sticky and sticking to my fingers, one side done. And when I'm putting this on, I'm only putting it on the seam allowance. I'm not putting it on the outside of the stitch line, because then I'll fold it over and it'll be on the outside of the stitch line. Also going to try and connect this line just so it's a little easier for me to see where I'm matching it up to. All right, now we're going to take the strap and we are going to fold it in half again, and I'm going to put clip in it. So I'm going to go along, folding it all the way down. Where I have clips, I will move the clip and just, I'll keep going. The one thing I remembered that I should have said, if you want at this seam, you can stitch on either side. I just, with my contrast thread that I'm using, I didn't really want that seam to be visible. So that is why I am not top stitching that. I use tape and hopefully I won't have a problem going through that. Okay, it's time for us to start stitching the top stitch the strap, and that's just going to be like we did for the handles. I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch, switching it to a 5 stitch length, and I'm going to go all the way down the open side first, across the bottom, back up the top, and across here. Now these stitches, it is a little nicer to leave some space so you can cut it off evenly at the end. If we don't come all the way down to the bottom, then we can actually trim off the ends. If you have fabric, you will have folded it over and you won't have to worry about this. You'll just come across nicely at the end with your stitch line. So here we go. As I said, 5 stitch length, and I will be back stitching. You don't have to. There are ways of tying it off in the center, but I'm not doing that. So as you can see, it's not perfect. Being it's stretchy, it got very close to not catching over here, but it'll be fine. It gets better after a while. If you are doing a just a straight crossbody strap, it will be a little different than what I'm doing now. I'm doing it so that it can be the backpack strap. So as I said when I went through all the pieces, I will be using the wide mouth slider because I have a thicker strap. So I'm just going to put the 1-inch strap sliders that came with the kit and putting those to the side. So now I'm going to, before I start putting it together, I'm just going to trim off the ends so that they are even. There we go. Clean them up a bit. All right, so figure out which side is your top. If your stitching has a top and a bottom, mine does. So this is the top of my strap. So I'm going to fold it over according to the instructions. I'm going to have to measure it shortly, but approximately what it says in the instructions. And then I'm going to grab one of my sliders and I'm going to put it over the bar and then fold it back. I'm going to, for now, grab a clip and I'm going to clip. All right, at this point, it would be worth, if you're going to stitch it, go and stitch it. I am going to be simply using a rivet in here. It should be fine with just a rivet. Depends on your rivets. I'm hoping mine are fine. If not, then I will have to stitch it. Go and rivet if that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, we're going to put this, I'm going to lie it out and I'm going to have it so that the raw side of the strap, so this is the wrong side up. The wrong side is where the raw edge of your strap is after putting it through your slider. So we're going to have it wrong side facing up all the way across. So now I want to take one of my swivel hooks and I'm going to put it so that the flat side here is against the wrong side of my strap like that. And I'm just going to slide it on, get close enough that I can work with it. So now I'm going to make sure I've still got the wrong side facing up. I'm going to slide it up. So wrong side to wrong side, I'm going to slide it up one side of the adjuster, make sure nothing is twisted, and then down the other side of the strap adjuster. So once we've riveted this on, this is one of the straps of your backpack. So now we need to go do the other one. All right, so I'm going to grab the next strap adjuster or slider, and I want to make sure that I've got it facing the same direction because this is the top of my strap. So the outside here is the top of my strap. So I want to make sure that I put this on the right way. So I'm going to go up. So I've got it coming from my left. This is the top. I'm going up the left side of the strap adjuster and down through the right. and moving it. I'm going to now grab my swivel hook, and again with the flat side on the wrong side, which is now the inside of the strap is the wrong side, I'm going to put my swivel hook on and move it in, bend this around, give myself some slack in my where my slider is, and I'm going to come up from the left side of it the way it's sitting right now. So there's the rest of my strap. This is the outside, comes in around. I'm going to come up the left side of the strap adjuster and then curve around and come down the other side, and only leave about the same amount on this side as I did on that side. I will be measuring it off camera. So now this is what we have. So we need to, so the raw end of the strap is inside this loop. So it's hidden. So you've got a nice on this, you've got nice on this. So this is what you have. So this will end up in that, for me, the O-ring or the D-ring if you can fit it. And these will clip at the bottom to the little D-rings that will be at the bottom. All right, before moving on, the one thing I want to go over is if you are using a strap like mine and the big wide mouth strap here, I've already allowed for extra sticking out. So I gave it about 1/4 of an inch extra than what the pattern suggests. The pattern's great if you're using quilting cotton. It's not as thick. The regular strap sliders, I had a very hard time getting my rivets set, but give yourself a lot more room. I would say at least another 1/4 of an inch. So that would be 1/2 an inch more than what it says in the instructions. If you're at least 1/2 an inch more than what it says in the instructions with thick strap and this big strap slider, because I've kind of wrecked the rivets. I don't know if they'll hold or not. I'm gonna have to redo it. Now it's time to move on to constructing the exterior front panel. So we're gonna need our 2 front panels, the ones that we have interfaced and that are mirrored. So they should have the long straight edge opposite each other. So this is my front and this is the lining of my front. We're going to be working with these. We're going to eventually need the center top, center bottom, and then center lining. So for now, I'm going to set these two aside. We're also going to need our zipper. I don't put my zipper slider on until I absolutely have to. You can put it on ahead of time if you want. I will be putting it on later, but I've got it out, and I've also got my bag label, which I'm probably going to put up in there, but I'll wait till I get this somewhat constructed before I do that. This is my front main panel, and I am going to, along the long straight edge, I'm going to take my zipper tape and I'm going to center it right sides together along that edge. I'm going to take a couple clips and clip it in place. Now I'm going to baste this on. I have it on a 5-stitch length, and I'm just going to baste along the edge with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, I have it basted on. Now I'm going to take my other center front panel. This is the center front lining, and I'm going to put it right sides together with the center front panel, matching up the long edge. And I'm going to put some clips in it. I'm going to put it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to sew it on. I'm going to try and get the full seam allowance, but I do have problems getting the full seam allowance with this foot. So I'm going to get as close as I can, but my seams may be different, or like it may be different. I may end up with a different seam allowance than what it has in the pattern. Try to get what it has in the pattern. I just don't want to switch out to my zipper foot. All right, now I'm going to take these and I'm going to fold both of them back away from the zipper, and I'm actually going to go take it to my iron quickly and iron it, since I can iron this fabric. Okay, I'm back, and now I'm going to top stitch right along here with the standard 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I've got it on a 5-stitch length, and I'm just going up, top stitching the seam we just sewed and ironed. Now we want to take our finished piece with the zipper on it, and we want to place it on top of this center front lining. So I've got the center front lining right side up. I'm going to place this right side up on top of it, trying to match all of the sides and the zipper edge here. Got the zipper there, got it pretty much matched all the way around. Going to put some clips in along this edge here. Going to baste the zipper on here with the standard 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So basting at a 5 stitch length. Okay, so I'm going to grab my zipper and I'm going to put my zipper on, and we want the zipper going up towards the top. So if you had your zipper pull on at this point, you would want it pointed towards the top. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that before. I work with it out without the zipper slider on, and I didn't even think to say, you want it to close up towards the top. So I'm going to pop my zipper on. So I'm going to see if I can get this in the camera. So I'm going to have a look at my zipper tape, and coils alternate. So you need one on the right, left, all the way. So I usually take a look to see which coil is on top. Because if I get it back closing exactly like this, then I know it's going to be straight because it's already straight. So as long as I get this back in the same spot, it should continue to be straight. So I'm going to break open the zipper. I'm going to grab my slider. I like to put it on the side that I want at the top first, but I don't think it really matters. And then I'm going to slide the other part in. I don't know if you noticed that as I slid it in, I also backed the zipper up a little bit so that I can try and even it out. And now I'm just going to push on the butt end of the zipper and slide it on. And you can see I've got it too high. I've got 2 on the right, then 1 on the left. And you can also tell it's not right because I've got a bulge more on this side than this side. So I need to back up my zipper again. And I need to make sure I pull down one on the right side and then push it back down and have a look. And there we go. I got it this time. And you can tell it looks much better there. So I'm going to move this to the center. And now that I've got my zipper on, I'm going to continue basting around the other 3 sides of this pocket. And you can actually baste across the zipper. That way then your zipper slider won't come off. Now I need to go over, have a look, flip it over, and there's parts, there are parts where I've missed because the back panel wasn't as long in that case. I think the front. So I'll be going around, I'll be fixing those stitches there and making sure I catch everything. And then I'm going to trim up my zipper and trim up all 3 edges. I've got this all trimmed up, cleaned up. This is our pocket. I'm not going to open it all the way, but it is all together. So now we want to take our top panel. We're going to take the center top and we are going to match it up so that the bottom of this center top panel meets up with the top of the center panel. Mine's hanging off a little bit, but that's probably okay. I did trim this down a bit, so it may just need to get trimmed. So I'm just going to clip it in place. So the bottom panel, we want it to finish like this. So I'm just going to flip them right sides together, center that bottom panel, and then I'm going to clip it in place as well. And when we turn around to stitch, I will stitch both of them on. All right, now at the machine, I'm going to set it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch this on at the full seam allowance given in the pattern. And I'm back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. And you can back stitch over the zipper if you want, that's up to you. And actually, I'm going to stop in the center. I'm going to actually come from the other side and I'm going to stitch it upside down. This is a lot more stable than my faux suede. It's stretching on me. I can feel it shifting already. So I'm going to line this up and start from the other side. I'm going to line up the edges. I'm going to start on this side and I'm going to stitch this on with a full seam allowance. So when you When you stitch with your more stable side up, the feed dogs help pull your fabric through on the bottom side. So it keeps it with a walking foot on top and the more stable fabric on top and the feed dogs on the bottom, it shouldn't stretch it out too much. I'm actually going to take out these stitches because I'm going to try and get it even all the way across. I really don't want to have to cut off any more than necessary, because you cut off too much and then things don't fit properly further on in the pattern. So I'm just going to trim this off for now and see if I can ease it all in. All right, there, yeah, the feed dogs did their job and I was able to ease that in better. It's still got a little overhang here, but that's not too much. It could have been a lot worse if I hadn't done that. So now I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to push the center front top and bottom panels away from the center front piece, and I'm going to top stitch them. So I've got my panel sitting up, I've got my top and bottom on the top, my seam allowance is on my left, and I am just going to push my top piece over the seam allowance, and I am going to catch that seam allowance in my top stitch. So this is a nice decorative stitch, but it's also holding that seam allowance going up. So here we go, 5 stitch length, quarter or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you can't do an 1/8, you can probably do a 1/4 on most of this bag. I can't think of any spots that you can't do a 1/4 inch top stitch if you can't do an 1/8. Try for the 1/8, but if you can't, then try for the 1/4. And we're going to do the same thing for the bottom. So I've got everything facing right side up. I'm going to take my bottom piece and fold it down over the seam allowance, and I'm going to top stitch. All right, the one thing I want to do before going on too much further is I'm going to take my back panel and I'm going to put it over my front, and I'm just going to see how it all fits. So my front panel is a little bit shorter than the back. Okay, the zipper pull's really getting in the way. So if your constructed front center should now match your back in size, if not, trim it to make it the same size. So I don't have to trim this part, but I do have to trim the back one to make it the same size. So it's not going to be perfectly matching, but as long as it's the same size and after I've stitched the sides on, everything ends up the same size, we should be good. All right, they're not perfect. They're good enough though. Now that we've got the front panel all done, it's time to work on the back panel. So I'm just going to set this aside for a few minutes. And I've got, so with this back panel, I've got 2 lines marked. I've used my Choco, so this is just a pen filled with chalk if you haven't seen one of these before. And it has a little blade on, or a little, I don't know, rotary, I don't know, little spiky things on the end that actually will draw out in chalk. And the chalk is fairly easily wiped off. Just grab my cloth. This is what I use for edge coating things. So I'm just going to, it wipes off pretty easily. I noticed before when I was using the silver marking pen that it wasn't coming off as easily, so I thought I would use this. I've got my back panel right side up, and I've gone and marked according to the instructions. There's supposed to be 2 lines marked, and there you go, horizontally across. So I'm going to take my O-ring. This one is the 1.5 inch O-ring, and I'm going to put it in the ring anchor like this, and then fold the fabric back on itself like that. So the short ends are meeting. Grab a couple of clips and put some clips in it. All right, so we need to now attach this. You can baste the bottom if you want. I'm actually going to grab some of my Wash Away Wonder tape, and I'm going to just put a piece of tape along the bottom here. This one is just going to be to help keep it closed. Taking the paper backing off, put the ring back on, and then fold it back down. So you could baste it, turn around to the machine and baste it. You can tape it like that. I'm going to go and figure out which I want on the front. I think that's the front. So most of it's going to get covered. I don't think it really matters, but I'm going to go put another piece of tape across the bottom here. There we go, got that up. And I'm going to take it and place it. I should have marked the center, but I'm going to guess and then I'll check before I stitch it on. I've got my center marked here, so I'm going to guess around here is centered. So I want to center it on the lower of the two lines, the one that's further away from the top. So I'm going to center it and put it evenly down. All right, as you can see, I have taken and I've added a little cross mark here. I used the chalk as well, and then in air erasing pen, I've marked a spot on the middle of my ring anchor because I would like it fairly centered. So now we're going to go and we're going to stitch back and forth across here up to the amount listed in the pattern. I'm not giving the measurements, just look at the pattern and it'll tell you approximately how far up you can come going back and forth. I may just do across, up, back, and then an X because back and forth on my machine doesn't work very well. So I'm going to do it at it says based, and I've got it on a 5, so I'm just going to leave it there. You can do this. I guess you could do this with your 3.5 or your joining stitch length. You just may perforate your fabric if you do it with the stitches too close together. So here we go. Right, so there we go. This doesn't have to be perfect. You can see it a little better from the back. I just did the rectangle. This is to hold it in place. We will have the support strap on here as well, so it will get sewn across again, but this is just to really hold it into place. We've got our ring anchor sewn on. I'm going to add the strap support. So we want to add it so that it lines up with the first line that we drew. So it's going to go right across there, and we're going to stitch it into place. Looks like I centered it pretty well. You want to make sure that you've got enough hanging over on either side. So like if you're down like this, you don't want it starting like this so that you miss. You want it to be over covering the whole back of the piece. I am going to actually add a little bit of tape right down the center because I won't be stitching down the center. So I've got this is my 1/2 inch extra sticky tape. So I'm going to put it right down the center of this piece, and I'm hoping that I can keep it out of the stitch lines and that it'll just hold it in place nicely while we stitch across. Taking the paper backing off, and then again lining up the top of the strap anchor with the first line we drew, making sure that it's overhanging on either side at the bottom of the strap support. All right, top stitching this in place, we do 2 rows. We're going to do one at about 1/8 of an inch, another one at 1/4 of an inch on both top and bottom. So I may see how it goes. I may just come down the side here to come across, down, and then back up, do the second box. But I do have the tape in there, so it might not work. We'll see how it goes. And I'm on a 5 stitch length, and I will be back stitching because this should end up in the seams. Now, if you need something to help you up onto this piece, you make sure if you're using the ring, make sure it's up out of the way. And then I have this piece of fabric that came with my machine. I'm just going to slip it when I get a little bit closer there. I'm going to put it under my foot. Acts like a hump jumper to get up on top of this, and I'm going to pull the ring out at the same time. If you're using a D-ring, this will be flat across and you'll have more space, but right there is with me pulling it up. That's as far up as it goes. So if I don't move it, I could end up stitching on it, breaking a needle, and wrecking my machine. And we don't have to worry about that on the next round because it's out of the way now. We should be good. All right, we've got that sewn on. If you want, you can put some rivets. I may do that after. I have to decide before I put the bag together. So I'm pretty sure I do have it on my bag. I'm not sure if it's really necessary. And it only comes down about halfway through. So my rivets have to be up higher unless I put 4. So I'm going to think on it whether I actually want it. I'm not sure it actually makes a difference because we've stitched in there before. Now we're going to take our scissors and we're going to trim off the excess strap support. And I just flipped it over and I'm trimming it off from the back so that I can get a nice even line. There we go. So I have marked in from the sides according to the instruction. And now we're going to take the 2 strap connectors that are not sewn. I have put a little bit of tape, double-sided tape on the bottom. You want to make sure if you're going to do this, you keep it out of away from your hardware, because otherwise it'll stick and then they won't fold over properly. So I've already taken the backing off because I was struggling to do that. So now I'm going to fold them in half, matching up the bottoms and hopefully sticking the tape to the other piece, not my thumb. And there we go, we've got one. Do the same for the other. Okay, so now we want to take these strap connectors that we just attached together. You can baste it across the bottom if that helps. We are going to be sewing up, across, and down. So I'm for now just going to clip these. And then we're going to match up the edge of so in this case, I'm working on the left-hand side of my back exterior. And I'm going to match up the left side of this strap connector along that line that I drew, and the bottom of it along the bottom of this piece, just like that. Do the same for the other. All right, now we are going to stitch these on. I'm switching it to a 3.5 stitch length because these are where we're going to attach our backpack straps, and they could, you know, carry quite a bit of weight. So I want to make sure that they're on and they're on there well. So we're going to go up one side, come across, and then down the other side. So up, make sure they are perpendicular to the bottom, that they stay perpendicular. So this is a case where you might want some double-sided tape in there to make sure it stays straight. So I've switched to a 3.5 stitch length already. I'm going to move my clip out of the way, and I am going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'm going to come up as close as I can. I'm going to come across, and then I'm going to go back down the other side, back stitching at the beginning and the end. And then when I go back away from my hardware, I tend to go backwards because then I'm not trying to come down off of this and it would skip stitches. There we go. And if you want to add a rivet, which I think I will do in this case, add a rivet. I'm going to add it probably just in here, inside this. I mean, we have to worry about seam allowance. So yeah, I think I'll add it just under, my stitch line is here. Can I get a little closer? So my stitch line is here. So I'll add it like about 1/8 of an inch below. So I did this off camera. I've added rivets to my strap connectors. I just marked a spot. I used my hand punch to punch the hole. I've put my small rivets in, and I also used some Decaville heavy. If you're not going to put rivets in, I would recommend going back and forth across the top. So when you turn to come across under your hardware, I would go back and forth just a couple times, like go there, back, and come back, and then continue down. That will reinforce it if you don't either have rivets, don't want to add rivets. All right, so we want to move on to constructing the full exterior of the bag. So I'm going to just work with the front, and what I do for the front, I'll do the same for the back, but I'll do that off camera. So when we cut these pieces out, we had to cut mirrored. So we'd have one left and one right for the front and one left and one right for the back. I've got them set up how I want it to look when it's done. And so I've got the left here, and I want it to go on this left side of the bag. I've just moved my zipper pull out of the way so it's not in the way for a bit. So I'm going to take the left piece and I'm going to fold it over on top of the left edge of the center panel that we've been working on. And then I'm going to clip. You try matching up. The pattern's been designed, cleaned up so that it matches up evenly there. So match it up, and then along the edges, I'm going to clip down. Now, I had a little bit of extra here. So I may end up stitching from this side just so I know that I've caught everything. So actually I'll put my clips on this way. So I'm going to stitch, well, and this is a little bit stretchy, so I'll stitch with the more stable piece on top. And now I'm going to take the right hand side and do the same thing, matching up the top edge and corner here. All right, now we're going to go over and stitch this on. So I've got these clipped. I'm going to stitch them on with the full seam allowance. I'm on a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seams, and then come down the other side. And again, I've got the more stable fabric on top, and here we go. Try that again, because I was supposed to do it at the full seam allowance, and I didn't. So I can either take those stitches out later or just leave them. But yeah, trying at the full seam allowance as I instructed. I'm going to try and get as close to the full seam allowance as possible. Make sure when you're coming up, you move your zipper out of the way. So put your needle, make sure your needle is down so you don't lose your spot. Zipper out of the way, but also make sure that this was very close. So make sure that this is out of the seam line too. So now I want to open these. So I've got it sitting with the pieces, the side pieces that I just added face up, or wrong side up. They're on top. So my little gnome is facing up. I'm going to take the left side panel and push it over top. So I've got the seam allowance to my left. I'm going to push that left piece over top of the seam allowance, and we are going to top stitch. Now I've got very curly bobbin thread, so I'm just going to double check that I'm not going to run out. I think it'd be just, I probably would be fine. I'm just going to put a new one on though, because I have another one wound. And I'm moving to a 5 stitch length. So back to top stitching this piece, and I'm top stitching about 1/8 of an inch. And do the same for the other side. It's off by quite a bit, so I'm not sure. Oh, my piece was shorter, so I should have probably taken a bit off of here. Before I top stitch this one on, I may just take it off, shift it up so that the bottom is in line, and then trim off whatever it is extra at the top. All right, so I pulled everything out, all of the stitches out, took them apart, and then I've stitched them back on. I matched up the bottom kind of like this. So there's a little bit hanging over here. I don't know if you can see that. A little bit hanging over on this side. And when it comes up to the top, I've got quite a bit more hanging off the top. That's to be expected because this piece ended up shorter. Don't know exactly why. Maybe I took too much of my seam allowances. I don't believe I cut them incorrectly, but I could have just taken too much of a seam allowance here and here. Whatever, we're going to be able to fix this. So I've added them back on. I'm just right now getting ready to top stitch this. I do have little holes that I can see right now from my prior top stitching. I'm going to try and get in those holes again. And then when I'm done, I'm going to take a straight edge. So once this is it, I'm going to take a straight edge and try and trim this across evenly with the top of that, so I have one even piece. It'll make it a little bit shorter in the long run. I'm probably going to have to adjust my lining pieces, but we'll figure that out when I get there. For now, I'm just going to finish this off and trim it across, and then do pretty much the same thing for my back piece. All right, before we move on, just show you what I have. So there's the front panel. I have cut it back quite a bit, actually, straight across the top. I put it down on top of the lining fabric to check it, and it looks like it fits across the top. Let's move this out of the way. Looks like it fits across the top, so that's good. It does look like it's a little too wide. So Tara in her patterns generally designs the lining of the bag to be a slight bit smaller than the exterior so that it fits nicely inside. So it looks like I'm going to be taking off some. So I'm going to do that off camera, but I'm just going to be cutting back either side a bit. So at the top, we want them to be the same width across the top because it needs to fit. Now, luckily my fabric is stretchy, so I can make that fit. So I just need to take a little bit off of here because it's still, I don't know if you can see that, there's still extra on the bottom. So it should be fine that way. I'll just have to adjust it for the width. So I'll do that part off camera. I'm just going to set this aside for now. So now we want to add our swivel hook and D-ring to the back exterior of the bag. I've gone ahead and made the marks. I've also made a mark on the back of my connector. I've stitched them together, and then I also made a mark on the back of the connector. And this is how much we want to have hanging over the edge of our bag. So I'm going to take the D-ring, and on the left-hand side with the exterior face up, I'm going to put the one with the D-ring on the left-hand side. I'm going to keep the strap connector towards the inside of that line, closer to the center of the bag. And I'm also going to allow for the hangover. So I'm going to match the top edge of the exterior up with the mark that I drew on my little strap connector. And I'm going to put a clip in it. I may, before I go stitch it on, I may actually put some tape on it. I'm going to take the same with the swivel hook. I got a mark on it as well. I'm going to line it up on the inside of that line towards the center, matching up that line that I drew with the top edge of the exterior. And again, put some clips in it. So I'm just going to do this part, the basting off camera, and then we'll come back and do the handles. All right, now we're going to add on the handles for the bag. The instructions have you putting it on before this, but as long as it's on before we put the bag together, it should be fine. So we are supposed to mark a line. Well, we are supposed to put these extending over the edge by the amount listed in the pattern. So I've drawn a line to make it a little easier for me to see. I've drawn it on, I have two sides basically to my strap because my stitching is better on one side than the other. I guess I don't have my tension quite right because I can see the top thread coming through. So yeah, I have a back and I have a right and a wrong side. If you don't have a right and a wrong side, it really doesn't matter. So I've got this one in place because it took some figuring out what way I wanted it. So I have it with my wrong side face up. So I have my wrong side of my handle face up. I also have, we'll see if this is the right way. I have my open side on the outside and so the folded side is on the inside. I've got one already clipped on at that line. So I'm just going to fold the other one around and we match it up with the line we drew with the edge of the side piece. And then I'm going to clip it. And my hope is that when I finish and it's stitched in, the handle will be up like this. I have the nice folded edge on the right there, which will be showing. I mean, you can flip it either way, but that is the way I think it's going to go. So I've got the nice stitching on the outside of the strap. I've got the open edge more towards the inside, and then the folded edge kind of pointing out. So this is my hope. We'll see if that works. All right, I've got the exterior here, and now I'm going to baste these in place. I've got the side, the seam lined up on the side. I've got it protruding a bit on the top. Now I'm going to baste this on. So I'm going to put my needle down about further in, maybe not quite the center, but further in, closer to the center of the handle piece we're stitching on. This isn't as bad as the other ones, but I don't like starting to sew on a handle outside. Like I don't want to have to climb up onto it. I just want to stitch across the top. So if you start out further, then you have to use a hump jump or something to get on top of your handle. This way I'm already on top of the handle and I can back stitch. Now the instructions, she suggests you can stitch all the way across. But again, I'm going to have to now use my hump jumper or my fabric to get up on top of the handle. So I've got quite bulky handles. If yours aren't bulky, it's not a big problem. And then once I'm on the handle, I will back stitch. Got them both basted on. I'll go and do the other front panel off camera and we'll move on to the next step. All right, now it's time to sew the darts. So I'm going to sew the darts on the exterior, and then the darts for the lining will be done at a different time. So we want the darts down here. We want to fold them right sides together, and we want to match up the bottom here and then the edge. And I'm going to put a clip in both. So you want to sew it up with the recommended seam allowance given in the pattern. I'm going to put it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm just in, I don't know if you can see, I'm just in from the end, or from the side here. I'm going to back stitch in here, go back to the, see if I can show it on this side. So with the dart together like this, I'm going to start in from the edge, couple stitches so I don't have to hold the tails anymore, then come all the way back up to the edge and then go all the way down and back stitch. So that's what I'm doing on this side at the seam allowance given in the pattern, trying to keep everything from getting caught. All right, here we go. So you can see you can see my thread sticking up right there where I started. So I came forward, went back, and then came all the way forward and back stitch. Going to do the same for the other side. And there we go. We've sewn the darts in the bottom. I'm going to go and so there we go. I'm going to do it the other side off camera, and then we'll put these two together. All right, darts are all sewn up. Now it's time to put the two exterior pieces together. So I've got my exterior front on one. Now I'll take the exterior back, and I'm going to place them right sides together. And there's a lot of stuff in the way. So I've taken the back, and I'm actually popping it out. So the front is curved in and the back is curved out, so I can get in and nest these seams. So I want these lines, so our seam lines here, I want them to match up. So I'm going to clip them first. Now with the dart, I want half of it to go into the left and half of it to go to the right. So I've got the front panel going to the left and the back panel going to the right. And I'm just going to clip this in place. That's nesting the seam, and it's helping spread out the bulk a bit. So I'm going to make sure that my swivel hook is in. I'm coming up to this end here, and I'm going to I put a clip in the end, put it over there, and then I'm going to start clipping down the side here. Now I can come to the other side, and I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to take the seams that are at the bottom for the side seams, and I'm going to match them up as close as I can. And I'm going to put a clip in them. I've got this one spread out. I've got the back one pushed in. So I'm going to do the same with this here, this dart here. So I've got the back exterior going towards the center bottom, and I've got the front exterior going towards the side, and I will clip them. I'm going to come to the center bottom here because I've got my notches. Hopefully they're still correct, and I'm going to put a clip in that, and then go out to the side and put clips in. Make sure that your D-ring is going up. And now we're going to stitch these together. All right, we're going to stitch these together with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. We're going to start at one side, come down along the bottom, and then back up the other side. And I will be back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. These are our final seams for the exterior, so we want them to be good seams. I'm on a 3.5 stitch length, if I didn't say that before. Want to make sure that your hardware is out of the way so I can feel it with my finger, and I'm just kind of pushing it to the side to make sure it doesn't end up in my seam. I'm holding this up for two reasons. One, because it gets caught on my table, and two, because this is curved now. With the darts, it made it curved. So it's easier to go around this if we follow the actual curve and try not to keep it flat. We want to make sure that the seam down here is still tucked under. My stiletto to make sure that it's still tucked under as I go around. And be careful if you've put rivets in, be careful around your rivet. You may need piece of fabric or a hump jumper to get up here, giving it a little back stitch. It doesn't say this in the pattern, but I am going to leave a little bit at the top on either side, about inch-ish on either side, and then just trim the rest. If you have pinking shears, do I have them? So I'm going to use my pinking shears on, if I can, on some of it, especially on the curves, to allow, this will allow it to sit a little nicer on the curves. I shouldn't have trimmed on this side. I shouldn't have trimmed the strap connector at the bottom here, but I'll just make sure I don't trim the other one. It's been stitched on a few times, so it should be okay, but it probably shouldn't have been trimmed in the first place. All right, so we can now set, this is the exterior. You can see inside the bag. So we can put this aside for now and then start working on the lining. All right, for this section, we are going to be working with one of our lining pieces, our zipper facing. We're going to need our zipper slider, our shorter piece of zipper, and then we're going to need both eventually of our pocket lining pieces, but for now I'll just start with one. So we'll grab one of our pocket lining pieces. So I'm going to have my pocket lining piece right side up. I'm going to place my zipper right side up along one of the edges. I believe it's a square, so just pick one. And I'm going to clip it into place. So we're going to sew this on with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And we want to press the zipper away, or press the pocket away from the zipper like that. So it may look wrong that you've got the right side of the fabric with the wrong side of the zipper, or vice versa, you've got the wrong side of the fabric with the right side of the zipper. But when the zipper is in the pocket hole, like in the box, we want the zipper teeth out. But on the inside, when we open up the zipper, we want to see the nice side of the fabric. So while it may look wrong, it is not wrong. So I'm just going to go and quickly press this, and then we'll add the other piece. Okay, it's all pressed. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I always press my zipper tape once, because I keep it in a rolled up. It's not a tight roll, but still, I don't want it to be all wavy, so I tend to press my zipper tape. So anyways, I've got it pressed away. This is what it looks like. So we're going to, with the right side up of the other pocket piece, we're going to put this zipper again right side up. So then the first pocket piece we put on is right sides together with the second piece, but the zipper is still right side up. We're going to match the sides, and I'm just going to grab some clips along the side, check the other side. So we want to match up the top edge and the sides. And we're going to stitch this on the same way. All right, there we go. It's all stitched on. I'm going to go iron it like I did the other side. All right, so I've got my zipper on and I've pressed the seams away. The one thing I'm going to do before moving on is I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape along the top and the bottom, just right along the outside edge. And I'm using actually the really sticky tape. You can use wash away wonder tape or whatever. I should not be getting my seam. My stitch line from adding the pocket should not come out this far, so I shouldn't be catching this in my stitches. So I've got this now. The other thing I want to do is put my zipper slider on. Just like the other zipper that we did on the front, adding a zipper slider, I will take a look at my zipper, nice and flat, take a look at which coil is on top, and I see my right hand one is on top. So if I get one on the right, then left, whatever, it should be on nicely. So I'm going to just pull apart my zipper. I'm going to slide on my zipper slider, and then I'm going to pop in the other side. I'm going to pull back a little bit on my zipper slider to make it somewhat even, and then I'm going to push it on from the bottom. Push it forward a little bit and check the coils, and I've got it on right. So I'm just going to pop this in the middle, and I'm just going to leave that like this while we work on the lining piece. So in the lining piece, we need to find the center. So I found the centers, and I've, with my Choco pen or marker, whatever, marked a line down. It should come off hopefully easily with a cloth. The other thing is I've measured from this long edge, the top long edge of my lining piece, down what it says in the pattern, and I have marked another line. And this is where we're going to place our facing piece. On the facing piece, I have marked my center, and I have also marked in from the top down what it says in the pattern. And then I've also measured down again. I went a little bit further because I'm using a number 5 zipper. The pattern calls for a number 3 zipper, so if you're using a number 3, follow the instructions. If you're using a number 5, you can add 1/8 of an inch to it here to make this just a little bit wider to take the number 5 tape. I think you can fit a number 5 in the smaller opening, but I just prefer the look. So I have made mine a little bit bigger. So if it looks a little different, that is why. Then I moved it around. I've marked so far in from the left side and so far in from the right side. For your benefit, not for mine, I have marked again in about 1/2 of an inch on either side. I've marked a line down the center, 1/2 an inch from either side, and I have put the V's on. I don't normally do this, but I thought I would include it because we are going to stitch around the outside, and I'll just darken the lines we're going to be stitching on. So we're going to be stitching around here, across here, all the way down. These lines keep coming down. We are going to be stitching on these lines. We're going to stitch that box, then we're going to cut it and then cut into these corners. So I thought I would mark so that it's easier for you to see where I'm going to be. I'm going to cut a straight line to this point, then cut off into the corners. You can, it's either a V or you can a Y because it does come down the center. So sometimes you'll hear people call it a, a Y. Some will call it a V. Some people suggest more than the 1/2 of an inch. I wouldn't go less because it's a little small. And then also some people, this pattern is calling for stitching all the way around. You will see people, and I've done it, just stitch down one side, hop over, and back down the other side. They don't stitch the ends. Sometimes you can get a better finish when you don't stitch the ends. I'm going to be following the instructions in the pattern and just going with that. So now that I've got my facing mark and my lines all on here, I'm going to take my facing and match it up with my center notch here along the center line, and then the top of my facing along the other line that I drew. And this, if you've got like quilting cotton, I would put in a couple pins. This is rough enough that I think it's going to hold while I turn around, and we are going to go stitch this on. All right, so over at the machine, I've got my setting on my 3.5 stitch length. You can actually knock it down to 3, 2.5, whatever. Some people even say go larger, but I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want this ripping. So anyways, I'm going to start and put my needle down in this one corner. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to backstitch and then go down, leave my needle down, go right down to this corner. Not past, but just right down to this corner. Put my needle down in the corner, pivot, come down this line. You can back stitch along here if you want. You don't have to. Put your needle down in the other corner, pivot, come back, needle down, pivot, finish. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to mount my threads. And now this is what I've got. So I've stitched it all around. I'm going to now cut out the center. So what I end up doing is I'll fold it somewhat in half. And then I'm going to start cutting along the line I drew. So I've got a little hole here along the line I drew. And then I'm going to just stick my scissors in. You can do this with scissors. You can start it with a rotary cutter. You can, I don't have, oh yes I do. You could use a craft knife if you want. Craft knife gets into the corners really nice. The one thing I was thinking of when I was stitching around is it might not be a bad idea on the corners to do a couple stitches. That way, if you do cut your stitches, you have some to fall back on. Otherwise, you have to put it back under the machine and fix your stitches. So I'm going to just continue. I'm going to cut along that line until I get to that point. Then I'm going to put my scissors in and I'm going to cut to but not through my stitches in the corner. You have to make sure, like, I didn't cut my stitches. Good. You don't want to cut your stitches. As I said, if you cut your stitches, then you're going to have to re-stitch them. So I'm getting in as close as I can. And this is where the craft knife really comes in nice, because you got that point on the end that it'll just cut right into the corner nicely. So I'm going to cut up to that point. Then I'm going to do an angle off to the corner and cut to but not through my stitches and check. There we go. If I don't get close enough, I end up with puckering. So we'll see how this goes. Now I'm going to be taking this to my iron because that's the way I'll get the best results. And I'm going to be ironing it that way, either way, side, top, bottom, and the sides. And then I'm going to push it all through, pull it to the back, and iron it out flat. Now, you can use, if you're using something a little thicker, you could use glue, you could use tape. Don't forget though, you will have to stitch around some of it. I've got a woven fabric here that I'm using, so I may want to put fray check in the corners, but I want to get it so I don't see the facing. You should really not see the facing when you do this. Yeah, so I'm going to take it to my iron and go do that, and when we come back we will install the pocket. All right, I've got my lining all done. So I've folded it back and pressed it. I've also put some fray check in the corners because this is a cotton canvas and it was starting to fray already. Now I'm going to take my prepared pocket piece, lining piece. I put my zipper slider, I want it to close to the left. So closing this way. So I've got the head pointing in that direction. I'm trying to keep my little zipper slider out of the way for a bit. And then I'm going to want to place this. So this is zipper is right side up. And then I'm putting this behind. So this is the right side of my lining panel. And this is the wrong side. And I'm going to just put it over top like this. I'm going to look and see. So the facing is about as wide as the lining pieces for the pocket. So I want it to be centered along there. So I can't see this right now because otherwise I'll get my head in the way. So what I'm going to do is just pause the video for a minute. I'm going to take the paper backing off of the bottom here. So I'm going to just take the backing off the bottom one if I can. I've been struggling with double-sided tape today. And then I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to try and center it side to side and then up and down around the zipper. So I'm going to do the bottom first. I've stuck it to the bottom and I've tried to center it across the zipper here. I've moved my zipper slider in. I'm going to take the backing off the tape for the top now, and I'm going to try and place the top an even distance away from the zipper like the bottom. I'm going to double check it off camera, but then we're going to turn around and we are going to stitch this into place. Now we're going to stitch a box right around the edge, so about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge, all the way around, making sure that it stays fairly even. I'm going to start just down from the zipper, so my zipper slider's right here. I'm starting just down from it. I'm going to put my needle down. Now I'm going to leave my tails long. Usually I backstitch, but I'm using a contrasting thread, so I don't want to see a whole lot of backstitching. So I've got my tail a little longer here, and I've got it on, I'm going to put it on a 4 stitch length. I like a little smaller stitch. You can do a top stitching in here, but I like it a little bit tighter than that for an inside pocket. So I'm just going to come down across all back to where my slider is, move my slider down to this end, and then continue around. And I'm going to try and not backstitch. So here we go. All right, I'm up to my zipper slider. Now I'm going to move my slider all the way down to the end. And yes, I did backstitch across the end. I want to make sure it stays, that the zipper can't come through. I don't always do this. I don't know why I did this time. So here we go. I'm going to finish off the seam. And again, I'm going to leave it long at the end. So I'll pull this through and backstitch. I'm probably going to go over this again to match the end, the other end, but otherwise I'm not backstitching. I might have a problem pulling this through because I think I stitched through the first stitch. Yeah, I'm not going to get it through without shredding it. So be careful when you go back into the starting hole when you're doing this. I ended up putting, my needle went through the thread, so it's kind of caught. So anyways, I'm taking one set of threads and I'm just going to knot them that, and then I come backwards like that. And then again. There we go. That worked anyways. So now we're going to, like I just did, flop them together, like I put them back together. So on the back side, it looks like this. I'm going to clip the sides, and then I'm going to trim off that part. You don't need to watch me trim it off, but I'll just be back when I'm done. I've trimmed it all off. Now we need to sew the zipper pocket closed. So we're going to leave the bottom of this panel open. It says we will turn our bag through this zipper pocket, but I think I'm going to do, I've been following the pattern all the way along. I think this is a spot where I am going to deviate. I'm going to leave an opening in the bottom down here of the bag, turn it through, and then close it through the zipper pocket. I don't like turning through a zipper pocket. I don't want to rip any stitches. I don't want to wreck my zipper. I just prefer to do it this way, where I leave an opening in the bottom of the bag and close it through the pocket. So I will show you how to do that. It doesn't matter in either case. We still need to leave the bottom of this bag or bottom of this pocket open. So I'm going to be stitching it down the side. It doesn't say what seam allowance to give it, so I'm just going to do whatever. I'm still on a 4. That's probably fine. You want to back over the zipper, it's extra reinforcement, and then continue down. Now the pattern has you continuing right to the end. I'm going to do the little trick I usually do, which is taking both pieces of this zipper pocket, and I'm going to fold them together back on themselves. And then I'm going to stitch right down and off the end. So we've created a little fold in the pocket, and that's going to help us later. Do the same on the other side. So I'm going to just move my slider out of the way. I'm going to, since I ended and I'm starting from this end, ended with it folded. I'm starting from this end. I need to fold it up before I put it under my needle. And I'm going to start in a little bit and then back stitch and then come forward. Doesn't matter whether you're going to follow what I do or whether you're going to actually turn, or my scissors, turn through the bottom of the bag or bottom of the pocket, you still need to leave this open. So now what I'm doing, just to help reduce a bit of the bulk, is snip into but not through my stitch line. So it separates it a bit. And I'm just right above the fold. And now I'm going to take the bottom of my pocket and I'm going to pop it so that, see, it folds back on itself. And by putting that snip in, we're allowing part of the seam allowance on the side here to come in underneath. See, it's actually under this side here. And this part can stay flat. So I'm going to do that on the other side. You don't have to do this. You can come straight off the end. This is the way I like doing it because I feel like I get a good seam when I go to close it. You can iron. If you've got fabric, you can iron. Go iron it. I'm just going to clip it because you shouldn't really iron the back of waterproof canvas. It doesn't like it. Put some clips in it just to hold it for a bit while we continue working with it. I just find it gives me a nice finished edge to stitch along when I close up the pocket. All right, so now we're going to work on adding our magnetic snaps. The pattern only has one in the center, so following the instructions, I've measured down from the top to mark that one. And then having a look at my bag that I made and where I decided I wanted the snaps, I've marked the marks for the center of it. So I'm just going to open up my bags and get out my, this is just one of the snaps. So we've got two parts. You've got your male with the sticky outie, and then you've got the female with the inning part. And yeah, so we're going to be adding these. I've got, like I said, 18 millimeter, and these are the slim magnetic snaps, and they're pretty strong. So I'm going to take, first I'm going to take a washer. So these are the washers that you go with the prongs, and they will end up on the back. All right, so I grabbed a Soline chalk pencil. I've got marks here. It's not really marking very well. I've got marks here and here and here. And now I'm going to take my washer and put it centered over that mark, and I'm going to draw on either side. Do the same for the other. And then I will do the same for the other lining piece after. I'll do that off camera, but for now, this is what I'm doing. I'm grabbing, this is a cutting mat. I'm just using the wrong side of it so that I don't show anything. So I'm going to take my cutting knife. Now there's a bunch of different ways of doing this. If you feel comfortable using your seam ripper, you can. I would recommend, if you're using a seam ripper, that you take a pin and put your pin in at the bottom of the points. So see if you can see that. So I've got, maybe it's not level, or just the way I'm holding it maybe. So I've got the pin going across the marks like that. And if I take my stitch ripper, so switch out to my stitch ripper, and I put my stitch ripper in one end here and then go up, it keeps me from going too far. So this is telling me where the limit is. So yeah, you stick your stitch ripper in and push it, and the pin stops it. I prefer to use, I don't like having to do the pin thing, so I like using my knife. So I just put my knife in one side of the point and drag it down to the other side of that line. Do the same for the other ones. All right, got those done. Just set this aside for a minute. And now I've got some Decaville Heavy that I'm going to make marks on. And I'm going to take my washer. Doesn't matter, they should all be the same. And I'm going to just make a couple lines on either side. There we go. So now I'm going to do the same with my knife and cut these holes. So now we're going to take, I've got my one here. Let's see if I can get them apart now. There we go. So of the snaps, the magnetic one is the female. It doesn't really matter here because we are doing males on one side, females on the other. So whichever you decide to pick the same one for the same side. So all of the males on one side, all of the females on the other. So I'm just going to stick with the male right now. I'm going to go to my, put that off to the side, find my spot where I've put my marks, take my male portion of my magnetic snap, and I'm going to pop them through the holes like that. I'm going to take one of my Decaville Heavy pieces. Now I'm going to take a washer and I'm going to put that down over the prongs as well. Sometimes you have to move the prongs. You can just grab a pair of needle nose pliers to help push. And then I'm going to fold those in. I like folding them in towards the center. You can fold them either way. I just prefer them in towards the center. Bang them down a bit, try and get them a little flat. Helps if you actually hit it. And then I am going to put duct tape, and I'm going to put a little bit across just to cover up the prongs so that it doesn't rub and go through the exterior part of the fabric, because you'll be closing it with these, probably pushing through the outside. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. So then I'm just going to cover the whole thing in the back with some duct tape so that it, you know, if it's rubbing, it's going to rub on this first and hopefully not go through immediately. It should make your bag last longer. So I'll do the same with the other male portion of the bag, or of the magnetic snap. Again, this part here, me adding extra, is just me wanting extra security, because this is my daily bag. And as you can see, the sides, well, I've got things attached to the side, but it kind of collapses in. Part of this is because I have heavy keys on it. With only one snap, I feel like it could close up more with two snaps. Now, they would only be used in this configuration. If you were to wear it in, you know, the handbag configuration, like that, they wouldn't. They'd be there, but hopefully they wouldn't get in the way now that I look at it. Hopefully I've got them far enough out to the side that they're not going to get in the way. Anyways, this is what I'm planning on, so that when it's closed, I carry it mostly like this, and it's wide open on the sides. So that's what I'm trying to eliminate with these. Put the male pieces all in on the one side, folding them over. I'm just going to use these pliers to see if I can squish them a little more. Yeah, that worked a little better. All right, I've got all of the magnets on both pieces. Now, as I mentioned before, stuff doesn't stick to the back of waterproof canvas very well, so my duct tape isn't sticking very well either to the back of this. Hopefully it stays in place long enough for me to get the bag together. Anyways, so now that I've got them on, I'm going to put them together. I'm going to actually clip these, or clip the magnets in place. Make sure they're all aligned. And now I actually off camera, I sewed the darts. You don't need to see me do the darts again. We did it on the other one. So I'm going to nest the seams just like we did on the exterior pieces, and I'm going to put a clip in it. I'm going to go over to the other side and nest the seams same way. There we go. Go up to the top. I'm going to put a clip in the top, and then here. Now I did trim down, I don't remember if I said, I did trim down the sides of these just a bit, but I think I'm going to take a tiny bit more than the seam allowance, just to make sure that I've got a nice snug fit inside. I don't want the lining too floppy, and if we don't have a little less inside than we do on the outside, it can end up with a baggy lining. So I'm just clipping these. Now the other thing I want to do, I'm going to sew with this up so I can make sure that this stays out of the way. I'm going to put a clip in the center, but I'm also going to put some marks just in from either side. So I'm going to mark in here, and then about the same spot on the other side, right about there. So I'm going to leave this spot open. So I'll end up pulling this through here and closing it off. So yeah, I will start here and come down, and I'm actually going to come off on an L here and backstitch, and then start here and backstitch, and then go around up to the top. That way I can leave a nice big opening in this lining panel. Right, there we go. I've got it on a 3.5 stitch length, and as I said, I'm going to leave the bottom open a bit. So I'm going to start at the full seam allowance at the top, because if we take a larger seam allowance at the top, then the tops won't be the same size when we go to join them together in the final part of the construction. So we always start at the seam allowance given at the top, and then we can increase as we come down. But you don't have to. If you've done it right and all your pieces matched up, then you don't have to do this. But if you were like me and they don't match up, that the lining ended up being bigger than like comparatively bigger, or sorry, your exterior ended up being smaller than it was supposed to be, then you can take the extra off of the lining. If you had exactly the right, it finished off the right measurements, that's awesome. You don't need to take extra, because as I think I mentioned, Tara already has it in her pattern to, like, it is already the extra seam allowance, so the larger seam allowance is you don't need to take one, because she's already adjusted for that when she designs the pattern. Now the bottom of my bag was okay. I don't need to take off any more off the bottom. It was off the sides that I needed it. So as I come around this corner, I'm going back to the full seam allowance. I get to my mark, one more, I turn towards the edge of the fabric, and I just come off and backstitch. That reinforces my opening. So then as I come on this side, there we go. Make sure that your seams stay nested, or your darts. And remember, as you come up on the second side, if you've adjusted your seam allowance, go back to the full seam allowance here. Remove all of your clips, and there we go. I'm going to grab my scissors, and I am going to trim out some of the seam allowance. So I'm going to come in here where I came off with my stitches and redid the reinforcing. I don't want to cut any of my stitches. So I'm going to come in there and trim around. And just like on the exterior, I'm going to leave a bit at the top. It's easier to spread these open, to butterfly these, if you have a larger seam allowance. And when we go to put the exterior and the lining together, we want to be able to butterfly them. All right, the other thing I'm going to do now is take these out because they're going to just get in the way. All right, so there we have the lining is done. We do have this opening in the bottom, which is fine because we're going to close it later through this. So I realized after I had already put this together and was actually sewing up the lining that I had missed putting the fleece on this. It would have been ideal to put it on before I even did the darts so that I could stitch the darts on here, and that would help hold it. So, and the other thing would be to finish the seams and catch this in the seams if you know, because I don't have fusible fleece, it would have been nice for me to be able to catch it in the seams, and I can sew through it, so it would have been good. But since I don't have it, I'm going to have to work with this the way it is. I cut it out. I cut 2 pieces out based on the size of the panels now. So I'm going to have to trim some off because it's not exact. It's hard when you've got lumps and bumps to get a nice even thing, but what I'm going to do is grab a piece of paper, and I may just do this on the floor and I won't be showing you. I'm going to put a piece of paper down on the floor. I am going to spray my exterior, and then I'm going to place this down and stick it to it. I don't have a camera set up for that, so I'll have to do it off camera. And then I may go around and within the seam allowance, so we don't have a lot here, so probably stitch about 1/8 of an inch just to try and hold this on. And I'm going to do the same for both sides. All right, so I was able to spray glue this on, so most of it's glued. I did go around twice actually. I went around, put one piece on, went around just inside the stitch line, the original stitching line, and stitched one on. And then when I put, so yeah, this one went on first, stitched around. Then when I went to put the other one on, I just followed the stitch line that I had before. For adding this piece, I used it for that one. So hopefully I haven't wrecked any of my seams. I should be just to the outside of my original finishing seam. So this is not ideal. It is possible to add things later. It's ideal to add things at the right time. If you're doing it the way the pattern is written, make sure you follow those instructions and apply it at pretty much at the beginning. If you're doing it like me and adding it later, make sure you do it before the darts and before finishing the side seams. It makes it a lot more complicated to do this, especially since I cut down the sides already. The instructions, we're going to do the final construction. So I'm going to turn this, I think this one is the one that's supposed to go right side out. So this is what our bag is looking like. Now I'm going to take the exterior that is right side out, and I'm going to put it inside of the lining. Now I like to have the zipper pocket on the back side. So I need to, when I put these two together, hopefully these stay. When I put them together, I need to have the back side, the zipper pocket against the back side of my bag. So when I turn it right side out, it will be it'll be in here. So when I stitch this on and flip it, the zipper will be on the back. I'm just going to pop this in, making sure that my handles and my D-ring and my strap connectors things are all in. Make sure the ring's not in the way. And I have my centers marked, so I'm just going to start clipping. So I'm going to clip it, I'm going to come to the edge so that the lining being smaller than the exterior, it's not sitting in as nicely. I usually put the lining inside the exterior, but whatever. So I'm going to butterfly the seams like that, and then I'm going to put a clip in it. I'm going to go to the other side, push my lining in, or push my exterior in the lining, and then match up these side seams as well. Go to the center here and put a clip. And then I'm going to continue around putting clips evenly spaced along until I feel comfortable with how many clips I have. All right, I think I've got everything. So now I'm going to take it over to the machine and we are going to stitch this on with the full seam allowance. I'm going to start at the back of the bag and hope that my little things are pointing down in. Make sure that your hardware is pointing down into your bag. You don't want to stitch it. So I'm going to start just inside of this connector. I think you're going to have a problem doing it at the full seam allowance. Then do it at a smaller one first and then come around again at the larger one. I think I should be okay to get it at the full seam allowance. I've got it on a 3.5 stitch length, and hopefully you'll be able to see, I'll be able to get the bag out of the way enough for you to see. So as we get to the handles and the strap connectors, I'm going to be back stitching to reinforce. Make sure that hardware is all pushed down, and that means your O-ring, make sure it's out of the way. Next time, don't stick it to waterproof canvas or put them on at the very last minute. All right, I've trimmed all of the duct tape back. Hopefully it doesn't get caught on things and come off. It's only meant to keep from rubbing on the exterior, so we should be okay. So now I'm going to take the bag and I'm going to grab the exterior and pull it through the bottom lining hole and push out the corners. This should be okay, but we'll push out the top corner here. And we want to roll the lining towards the inside. So make sure you've got your edge out like that, and I'm going to put a clip in it. For now, I'm going to push the lining in, and I'll have to pull it out and to do it up later, but we got the handles out. So this seam is quite bulky because I still have fleece in there. If I had cut it out, it wouldn't be quite as bulky. I should be able to top stitch through it. Quite a bit of bulk right here. So I'm going to grab my pliers and I'm going to squeeze it and try and compress this a bit to make it a little less bulky. So these are just pliers with silicone, I guess, on the ends. I use them for key fobs. Somebody else said they're for breaking glass, like working with glass. I don't remember where I got them, but if I can find them, I will link them in the description box below as well. They are quite handy, and as I said, I use them to close up key fob, the tops, the metal part at the top of key fobs. Now I'm going to go to the machine and I am going to top stitch this. I may give this a little bit more of a, use this in a few more spots, But yeah, when I come back, we will be top stitching this. I'm probably going to be taking my table off and using my cylinder arm as a cylinder arm. If you only have a flatbed machine and don't have a cylinder arm or a free arm if you're using a domestic, turn this inside out, inside out, so that your exterior is on the inside of your bag. And then you can, pretending that this is the exterior, then you can sew around it at the top stitch from the inside. But I'm going to just keep it the way it is, and I'm going to stitch around it using my cylinder arm as I should. All right, here we go, top stitching. I've got it on a 5-stitch length. I'm going to come across the back first and try and push under everything, like push the lining towards the inside as I go. Yeah, I'm 1/8 of an inch, 5-stitch length, coming across, starting on the back. Yeah, I'll go all the way around. I am going to backstitch because I'm starting in the seam. It should be fine. So here we go. Make sure your handles are up and your hardware is out of the way. All right, grabbing my lighter and melting my threads. If you're using cotton thread, do not do that. But if you're using a poly or a nylon, I'm using bonded nylon. My machine does not really like bonded poly, so I tend to use bonded nylon. So anyways, we've top stitched the edge all the way around. So now we're going to work on closing the lining. All right, time to start to work on the lining. I'm just going to, yeah, there's our pocket, front pocket, really cute. So I'm going to open this up, going to see if I can do this without a lot of noise, pull out the lining of the zipper pocket. So as per the pattern, if you're following the pattern, you would have turned through this hole and it would have probably been a lot tighter. So now I've pulled out the lining, or pulled out the lining of the pocket. Now I'm pulling out the bottom lining of the bag. So I've got my pocket. This is my pocket. I've got my lining of the bag pulled through the pocket, and I am going to match up my notches, because this is one of the reasons why I find my centers on my bottom of the lining, so that I can do this, because I've found the center and it's perfectly aligned. So now I'm going to just put clips in this here, a couple on this side. I'm going to pull this out on the other side, and there we go. And now I'm going to turn around and we're going to stitch this across. I'm going to put my needle down just before this corner and go till just after this corner. And then we can trim that down and pop it back in the bag. All right, here we are. I've got it. I'm putting it on a 3.5 stitch length. And as I mentioned, I'm going to start just before where I came off. I'm going to start back in here and go to these just past on the other side. And I am sewing with the full seam allowance as per the pattern. So just make sure that the area you're stitching has been smoothed down and that there's nothing bulked up in the way. You may have to stop and readjust, but it's completely doable. See, readjust, pull out a little bit, readjust, smooth it out. Make sure it's smoothed out. So I just about sewed a crease into it. And grab your scissors and trim off. Now you can cut that angle because we've stitched it closed. So trim off the excess down to approximately what it says in the pattern. So here we are. I'm going to just push the lining back in through the pocket and into the bottom. Sorry, got a little close to the camera. Into the bottom of the bag. So now I'm going to take the pocket, and because I have folded it over, it's already started to fold for me. So I just put my fingers in each of the corners and pull back. I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to put a clip. So this just made it really easy to get even. So now I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I'm just going to close this. I'm going to sew it 1/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to close this. You don't need to watch me do that. And then when we're done, we can stuff it back in the pocket, and we can put the strap on the back, and we're all done in the bag. All right, there we go. I have stitched the pocket closed. I'm going to stuff it back in. And make sure when you're putting it in, you stuff the corners. Get the corners, so use your fingers and push it into the corners. I think I've got them down pretty good in the corners. There we go. There it is with the snaps. And let's see if this is going to work. So we bring these in, and then got a lot of fleece, so it may not like it to go flat, but it'll work itself in. So there, we've got it in. Yeah, well, I guess I could go out a little bit more from the center. Like I would probably move them over another, maybe even an inch. So 6 inches from the center for the front ones. The back ones are fine because they're in here. But the front ones, well, but you got to keep them lined up. So would I move both of them? Yeah, I think I would move both of them to be 6 inches from the center. It's okay, and it seems to be okay right now, but I can feel them right close to the edge. So yeah, so there we go in that configuration. I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to grab up my strap. I did take these apart and redo them. So the actual hole I had before I put up in here. So it is kind of hidden, but it went together a lot more smoothly, and my rivets are actually set properly now. So I took it apart and fixed it. So I've got my strap. So to use it as a backpack, we're going to stick one of the sides up. And this is why you need a big opening if you've got a thick strap, so you can get that through like that. And then we are going to clip these down at the bottom here. And there we've got the backpack strap on. If you use it as a backpack, I'm sure these will get used to and they'll fold in the proper spots, but that's how you set it up as the backpack. And I'm sure I have gone through all of the different configurations in the intro. And I'll just flip this over. And yeah, all the different configurations, they are listed on the last page before the pattern pieces in the pattern. Right now, as of this recording, they are on page 8. If there's changes to the pattern, that could shift them, but right now, as of this recording, they are on page 8. So there's handbag style, the tote or crossbody, and then there is the backpack style. So right now, the backpack style would be like, since I got the backpack straps on, I would think that these would come, looks like these are supposed to come around. I think next time I'm going to put some stitches right below the D-ring so it doesn't flip around on me. But yeah, so if you carry it in the backpack style, you hook it over like that. And I may actually go and add some stitches because this is spinning on me. But anyways, put this back. And there you go. This is the Rio Convertible Tote by Creations. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give it a thumbs up. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I try to respond as soon as I possibly can. And yeah, happy sewing. Oh, I do have a Facebook group. If you are on Facebook, I do have a Facebook group. I will post that link in the description box as well. Feel free to come on over and join my Facebook group, and any videos that I've done and you want to show me your bags you've made using my videos, that would be great. I haven't completely decided what it's for. That's one of the things I want it to be used for. So people who follow my videos and want to post their items, post it in the designers Facebook group, but you can also post it in mine. So yeah, hope everybody enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.